Dear students, in this particular video, we are going to discuss about the poem The Tables Turned by William Wordsworth. I'm sure that you must have been introduced to this personality way back in your school days or in your pre-university level. When the very word William Wordsworth comes to your mind, I'm sure that you'll all know that he's a great nature poet, isn't it? So, before actually starting the poem, let us have a brief introduction about him and let us just recall our memory of whatever we knew of him, right? So here, he was born in Cockermouth in West Cumberland, bordering the English Lake District, on 7th April 1770 and died on 23rd April 1850. Okay. So please, students, remember that Lake District is believed to be one of the most beautifully blessed, district with natural bounty of, great naturally scenic beauty can be seen there. Okay, so this had a great influence on Wordsworth. In fact, when he was young, he was sent to a school at Hawkshead near Estwet Lake. Okay, here he could freely roam about the countryside at his will. All his free time were spent in, rambling around the countryside. And here he was drinking in the natural sights and sounds of the nature, and he used to meet the cottagers. He used to see the solitary people roaming about in that wilderness there, and he used to meet the shepherds, and all these things became a subject matter of his poetry later. Okay, but anyhow, he was actually encouraged to come into writing poetry by his headmaster William Taylor. And of course, Wordsworth himself was a voracious reader, and he very earnestly took to writing poetry because of the huge encouragement that he received from his headmaster. Okay, students. And then he graduated from the University of Cambridge, and he went to France because he was highly influenced by the revolution that was happening at that time. But then after some time, he was disillusioned with the course of revolution, and he came back to England. And when he comes back, he stayed for a little while with his sister Dorothy. But then he goes to Somersetshire, where he meets with his Cambridge University friend Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And this meeting actually became so important that these two people used to meet every evenings. They used to discuss about poetry. They used to write poetry, and together they wrote, lyrical ballads. And in fact, this marked a new beginning or a new movement in the world of English literature. And what is that movement? It is called as the Romantic movement. I'm sure students, whenever you hear this term, a lot of fancy ideas run in your head. So I thought I'll just give you a briefing about what is this Romantic movement all about. See, Romantic movement actually began as a reaction to the neoclassical writers, especially Pope, Dryden, and these were the very prominent names in the neoclassical, literature. Pope, Johnson, Dryden, and all. And what is this? Why, they had to react to this neoclassical writings? People like Wordsworth, Keats, Shelley, Coleridge, Byron, they all thought of reacting to this order of things which were found in neoclassical. So what happened in neoclassical was, see, this neoclassical literature is actually characterized by order, accuracy, and structure. These poets gave lot of importance to they had to write only in this way. The structure of the poem means this has to include these and this. There was lot of accuracy expected, lot of order expected. Okay, and they also emphasized on self restraint and self control, restraint, common sense. These were all very strictly and rigidly followed in neoclassical literature. Okay, and these poets, for them, they viewed reason as the mainspring of learning and knowledge and inspiration for their poetry. For them, the main thing was reasoning, knowledge. That was the inspiration to write poetry. Whereas, this was and in fact, neoclassical actually started as a reaction against the style of poetry of the Renaissance period. And here, romantic poetry became as a reaction to the neoclassical poets. Please get this idea, children, that neoclassical poetry was expecting certain standards, certain order, certain accuracy in their style of writing, and lot of self control, lot of common sense, and it a lot of reasoning. All these things went into writing poetry, and that is exactly what romantic poets revolted against, or they it was a reaction to romantic movement, sort of became a reaction to the neoclassical literature. Okay, so to put the things to you all in a more simpler way, you just have to remember that lyrical quality, simplicity, and lucidity, these were the core things of romantic poets. What? They were very simple, they were very lucid, and it had lyrical quality. The poems of romantic poets had lyrical quality, it was lucid, and it was also simple. And when I say simple, see, people like Wordsworth, they wanted to take poetry even to the commonest of man. Okay, so earlier what happened was, these neoclassical poets were like the people who used to meet only in clubs and coffee houses, and they used to speak about the dandies of their days, all the styles and the statements of rich aristocratic people. They used to discuss about politics. It used to be only those things which were a matter of poetry for them. Okay, so it can be called as the town's poetry. Are you getting the idea, children? Neoclassics, they actually usually they would meet in places like clubs or coffee houses, and their main thing was to be satirical about the political issues, to be about speaking about the vanities of the upper classes and such things. And it was all limited to their drawing room discussions. Okay, whereas romantics, they shifted their focus from town life to rural life. Okay, so here simplicity was the main element of romantic poets. So that is why we find in Wordsworth poetry that he chose the language of the common man for poetic expression. Earlier this could not be even thought of. There was a certain expected standard of language for poetry, whereas Wordsworth chose the language of the commoners for the expression of poetry, because his intention, not only his, but people of his like mind, they all had the intention that poetry has to reach to the commoners also. So that is why they started writing in the common man's language. And not only that, even a common man became the subject matter of the poetry. Earlier this could not be even thought of. Wordsworth writes about a solitary reaper, deep in the woods, somewhere in the field there is one solitary reaper who is reaping the harvest, or whatever it is. And those things were never thought of to be written about as a poetic expression. Or the Lucy poems, or the leech gatherer. There are all these people who come from a very common strata of the society, and they became and they were celebrated in the poetry by people like Wordsworth, Keats, Shelley, Byron. They're all the key names when it comes to romantic movement. Okay, children, so please understand, this is a major element, or the major shift from neoclassical to romantic movement. Neoclassicals were all about order, accuracy, and structure, and self control, and restraint, and common sense, and reasoning, these things. Whereas here, for the romantic poets, it was all about emotions, it was all about imaginative quality in their poetry. That was greatly emphasized, which was lyrical in quality, which used to give lucid expressions, and it was also very, very simple. You can understand, when we read tables turn, you will definitely understand that, yes, their poems are not very complex. That is something which we can really get connected with much easier than many other grand poems that we have read. Okay, so this is, and also there is an element of supernaturalism, especially when you read poems by um, Coleridge and Keats, somewhere, Shelley also. To some extent, you find that element of supernaturalism which keeps up that mystery about the romantics. Okay, so these are some of the features that we can find in romantic poets or the romantic movement. I suppose I have given you a little idea about what this romantic movement was all about, and let us now proceed to the understanding of the poem itself. Okay, the tables turned. I'll just give you a reading of it. Please concentrate on the lines while the reading happens. The tables turned. Up, up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you will grow double. Up, my friend, and clear your looks. Why all this toil and trouble? The sun above the mountains had a freshening lustre mellow through all the long green fields a spread, his first sweet evening yellow. Books, it's a dull and endless strife. Come, hear the woodland linnet, how sweet his music. On my life, there's more of wisdom in it. And hark, how blithe the throstle sings. He too is no mean preacher. Come forth into the light of things. Let nature be your teacher. She has a world of ready wealth, our minds and hearts to bless. Spontaneous wisdom breathed by health, turn truth breathed by cheerfulness. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can. Sweet is the lore which nature brings. Our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous forms of things we murder to dissect. Enough of science and of art. Close up those barren leaves. Come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives. Okay, so anyhow, students, when we read the poem, I suppose that you all observed one thing, that it is like, the poet is speaking to his friend. In fact, this is actually the whole scene. In fact, tables turned is a reaction, or probably what you can say is that it is table turn comes with a subtitle called an evening scene. Okay, so it is a I mean, like, here's another poem of Wordsworth titled The Expultation and Reply. So, here, in which the poet's friend Matthew, he was asking the poet to quit dreaming and to read those books which the wisdom of the past would shed light on the problems of the present. Okay, so his friend Matthew, probably they were all in the university, they had their conversations. So his friend Matthew might have said that you keep probably Wordsworth appeared like dreaming a lot, because poets are different from the common men, isn't it? They seem to be there engrossed in their own world. So Matthew very genuinely asks his friend to better, it's high time you quit dreaming and all those things. Come, look at these fat books, you have so many things to study, and it will give you an idea about the past, and that will help us to deal with the present and all those things. It's wisdom filled, so please read books instead of just dreaming and dwelling in your own world. Okay, as a reaction to that, the tables are turned. Now the poet gives a reaction to his friend's thing, and he's turning the table on his friend, and this is the reaction and what he says here. Let us just try to analyze it paragraph wise. Okay, so up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you'll grow double. Yeah, I mean, like, in those days, I think books were the major source of indulgence, like what today we call as the gadgets we indulge in. It could be, it depends on how we use the gadget. Some of us, we use it to seek knowledge, we use it only for entertainment purpose, or only for whatever it is. It up to the individual's interest. In those times when the humankind was not invaded by all these gadgets of present day, people spent a lot of time reading. Okay, so in a teasing tone, Shakespeare, Wordsworth says that, come on, up, my friend, get up. You have been with those books for such a long time. Quit your books, or you'll surely grow double. So on one hand, getting a knowledge is different thing, but if you keep on just sitting and only with your books and no exercise physically or whatever, that is going to make you double. You're going to become fat. Okay, so, and fat invites a lot of other health issues also along with, isn't it? So here he's asking his friend to quit the books. His friend had actually asked him to come and read the books. So here the tables are turned now, and Wordsworth is asking his friend to leave the books, to quit the books, or he'll surely grow double. Up, my friend, and clear your looks. Why all this toil and trouble? Of course, when people are becoming such a serious readers and always dwelling into the book and studies and serious pursuit of knowledge and everything, they don't have that freshness on their face. They don't look lively, full of life, or whatever it is. So he's asking, why do you want to read so much? What is the use of it? Why are you troubling so much? Why are you just working so hard and taking all the trouble? Leave your books, correct your looks. Okay, he says. Then he says, the sun above the mountains had a freshening lustre mellow. Oh God, look at the quality of the picture that he brings in our minds, children. Just imagine the mountainside, and the sun is about to set, and there is a freshening breeze that is coming there, and there is a luster of mellow. I mean, when the sun is sinking behind the mountains, you see that orangish color, or the all through there. It makes a beautiful scene to see, isn't it? So he's asking his friend, instead of burying your head into the books, come out and see how beautiful nature is. Just experience this moment. What a pleasant evening it is. Look at the color of the sky now. Look at that mountain, how it has turned into all its glorious form now. Come and enjoy this, is asking. Through all the long green fields has spread his first sweet evening yellow. Okay, so it's like he's telling his friends, come and see what a spectacular scene you get to see here, because when the sun is sinking there, and you get all that sweet yellow tinge that covers the entire atmosphere. You must have the luxury of walking in this kind of an atmosphere. So it has spread all through these green fields. What a moment, isn't it? See, this is the speciality of the poets. They can bring in this kind of a beautiful expression where the readers can actually get into the scene ourselves, isn't it? So through all the long green fields are spread his first sweet evening yellow. So here, when he questions his friend in the previous stanza, why are you taking so much of trouble? Why are you working so hard? Okay, so he's just telling that in the second stanza, he expresses this beautiful scenery. So he's asking his friend to come out, okay, and have this vision or the experience of the sunlight, he's asking, okay. So the evening sunlight will be so beautiful. So he's asking his friend to come out and enjoy that scene. Now moving to the third stanza. Books. Look at him. There is an exclamatory mark. Books. It's a dull and endless strife. Okay, students, what do you mean by strife? Strife means to, struggle, to, work hard. Okay. So why are you struggling like this? It's such a, books means it's a, yeah, isn't it? When we read books, do you think it's an easy endeavor? Yeah, some of the books need you to really, break your mind and brain, and you have to really try hard to understand the things that are there in that, isn't it? And that is why he's telling, come, hear the woodland linnet. Reading the books is a very dull thing. It's an endless strife. It's an endless struggle. isn't it? Sometimes when we read books and if we are not in agreement to what the author is saying, maybe we'll have difference of opinion. It irritates us, isn't it? We are not happy after reading the book. Whereas nature always gives us happiness. So it's telling, come, here the woodland linnet. Okay, it's a bird again. How sweet his music on my life. There's more of wisdom in it. So it's telling, if you think that you get all the wisdom only from the books, it's a great lie. Because when you hear the sweet song and the sweet music of a small bird like woodland linnet, he says that will give us more wisdom than the books can give us. Okay, that is the magical quality of everything that is there in the natural world. So he says, don't strive, don't struggle endlessly in trying to acquire wisdom through books, because if you step out to to nature has more beautiful things, and through those beautiful things you can become more wise. Wisdom is not the thing which you can find only in the books. Okay, so he says that the real meaning of life can be taught by nature, and the wisdom of the life can be taught by nature. And he asks his friend to recall his memory, that how a trostle sings without a care in the world. Okay, so he's telling that, how sweet is music. So we must understand that, in life, if we take anything seriously, it's like ruining our life. Just look at that bird, it is so carelessly singing. Like that only, even in life we should be, free of any constraints in our mind. So that is the lesson that we get to learn from, that woodland linnet singing. So that is why in the next line he says, and hark, how blithe the turtle sings, and stop and listen. Hark means listen here. How blithe, in what a blitheful state of mind. In such a happy state of mind, the turtles sing. They don't care for the world. It's in its own world, singing like anything. He too is no mean preacher. Okay, so this careless singer is no less than a preacher. He says that small bird is actually preaching us a great value of life. So it's no use unnecessarily worrying. So that is the great lesson we can learn from that small bird, because when it is singing, it forgets the world. It is in its own blissful mood. It is so happily singing. Okay, so that is why he is a preacher. Who is a true preacher here? The bird, because it preaches us to be, free of all our worries. We don't have to, the end result is, if you worry anything about anything in life, do you think that will solve your problems or situation? No, isn't it? So we have to know the ways and means of working out through it. And just by worrying about things, we cannot achieve anything. So that's a beautiful lesson of life that is preached by this trostle when it sings, because it is so blissful and it doesn't care about the world. Okay, come forth into light of things, let nature be your teacher. So it's a great call here. So Wordsworth is giving a great call, and he's telling that, please come out of your dull, dark rooms where you just sit and read and things. Come out into the light of things. Come out and experience this, natural light, your sunlight and everything. And then please let nature be your teacher. Okay, and he further says, she has a world of ready wealth, our minds and hearts to bless, spontaneous wisdom breathed by health, truth breathed by cheerfulness. So here again, in this particular stanza, he's telling, the poet is praising the nature and he's eulogizing the benefits of nature. Okay, he tells that nature has, a ready wealth, and it is the spontaneous wisdom and health that comes out of nature. So in a deepened sense of poetic language, the poet he asks us to study and experience the lessons taught or inspired by nature. And if we study nature, we not only improve our wisdom and knowledge, but we'll also have the benefit of health. Okay, so here that is to imply that a walk in the nature will give you double benefit, both of wisdom and of health. Whereas whatever knowledge we gain from nature is the true knowledge, better than the ideas expressed in the books. Okay, and this knowledge which is learned from nature, we can learn it in a very cheerful mood. And because a man who experiences the beauty of nature will always feel cheerful. Okay, so our minds as well as our hearts are blessed with with knowledge and happiness. So what a fantastic way of saying this, isn't it, students? Wordsworth says, what wealth it is. It's a ready wealth, and our minds and hearts to bless. So when you go into nature, it's not only your mind that gains wisdom, but your heart also gets the ecstasy of joy when you're amidst nature. And there is a spontaneous wisdom that is breathed by nature, and you become more healthy when you are amidst nature, isn't it? So yeah, I think people who have not seen much of greenery, who have dwelled all their lives in the concrete forest of big cities, and for the change, if they get an occasion to come to, this places of natural beauty, they'll be in ecstasy. That brings in so much of joy to them when they are seeing it first. But I suppose that our students are all in the close affinity with nature, because most of you come from rural areas, most of you have seen greenery a lot in your life. But I can imagine my own childhood being spent in a big city where I didn't even have a glimpse of greenery, all through my growing years. So I suppose that, nature has that wonderful effect on us. It not only gives us wisdom of life, but it gives us in a happy way, because when we are in the natural surroundings, we cannot be dull. We'll be very, very happy, and we'll have a double advantage here, and we can be more healthy, because double advantages, nature quenches our thirst for knowledge, because it gives us that spontaneous, instant knowledge also is given, and at the same time it blesses our heart with bliss. We'll be happy. That is the speciality of nature. Okay, let us move further. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral, evil, and of good than all the sages can. Okay, so he's telling here, Wordsworth says that, come on, come out and get into the woods. Then you'll, if you are a good learner, it will teach you more of life and man, more of the ways of the life, like what is moral, what is evil, what is good. Everything can be taught to you better than what a sage can do. Okay, so he's asking his friend, it has that quality in it to teach us all the moral values of life, and it also teaches us the good part of life, the evil part of life, everything. Okay, so vernal wood means the forest trees in full bloom during spring season. That is vernal wood. Okay, see, whenever we speak of forest, I suppose there is a both the scary element there and also the lovely element there, isn't it? Forest is not a very easy place, but think of a forest in springtime. What a lovely thing it could be to behold a scene of a forest in springtime. Everything would have been freshly blooming. The flowers, the leaves, everything budding. It will make a feast to our eyes to behold a forest during springtime, isn't it? So he tells that, come and have a glimpse of this vernal wood, and it will teach you more of man, of moral, evil, and good. So here he's almost getting a tone of a philosopher here, you can say. So he turns into a philosophical tone, and he says that the sight of a tree in its full bloom during the season, spring season, it will unknowingly act on a man's mind and teach him and make him realize and gain enlightenment about the purpose of man's life. So here, he, as I told you, it has a philosophical tone. He says that once you just see a fully bloomed tree, and when you behold it, it will give you, inwardly it will teach you what is the purpose of your life. Okay. So these are the lines, children, where we must really think deeply. In what way you can understand this line? In what way do you think a fully bloomed tree during the spring season can make you realize the meaning of life? Okay, give a thought towards it yourself. And it will also give us an idea about what is morally good and what is morally evil. Okay, even the prophets or the sages, they cannot teach such lessons which the forest can teach man. And he says that they have wealth of knowledge which is of great benefit to man in every sense. And he says that a person is affected by the perception of beauty in the natural world in springtime. And that is where very intuitively we become sensitive towards good and bad, the right and the evil about life. So it's an intuitive way of understanding the integral values of life. Okay. And this kind of moral infection is to be more trusted than the judgment made by sages or the philosophical teachings of them. Okay, so here he tells us that it is just not an outwardly joy to see the forest, but somewhere deep inside you will be deeply impacted and moved to such an extent where you can start realizing the meaning and purpose of life, and very intuitively it will teach you what is morally good and what is morally bad. Okay, so such is the impact of nature. You don't have to pick a book, or you don't have to attend a sermon, or you don't have to go to the sages or the prophet to learn the meaning of life. If you enter a vernal wood, as I told you, vernal means all the fully bloomed trees during the spring season, that is the vernal wood here he's referring to. So that can actually give you a more knowledge about man's life and everything concerned about his life than the sages can do. So we here in this particular stanza we see that philosophical note. Okay, moving further. Sweet is the lore which nature brings, our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous forms of things we murder to dissect. Okay, so again in this stanza, we see that unfortunately, he describes this in a way that probably most of us may not very readily agree to it, but on a deeper thought, we'll probably understand what Wordsworth is trying to say here. Okay, it actually describes about the worldly systems. Okay, worldly systems here is again the reference to the books, and they actually reject what can be learned from the impulses of nature. Books actually reject what can be learned from the impulses of nature. Okay, instead these systems encourage minds. That is why he calls it as the meddling intellect. Okay, so these books or the system of education, this system of education, okay, so it actually makes our mind more meddling with things. That is what he says. It encourages our mind to analyze and the beauteous forms of nature. Okay, but before the mind can analyze, it must kill and murder and dissect, isn't it? So here the action of the logical mind, a scientific mind, destroys whatever it touches, and the defects its own purpose of discovering moral principles. So in order to discover moral principles, what is science doing? What is logic doing? It is actually destroying everything that it touches. Because even science, to come to a conclusion, it has to dissect the things, isn't it? It is becoming a murderer there. So he tells, so sweet lore which nature brings, that is better than our meddling intellect, and it misshapes the beauteous forms of things, and it murders and to detect, isn't it? So, all this logical mind, all this scientific mind can only bring disaster to nature, he says. So, enough of science and of art. Close up those barren leaves. Come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives. So, he pleads his friend again. Okay, so enough of that science and of arts, whatever, give up on all those things, and come up and close up those barren leaves. Barren leaves are the pages of the books that he's referring to here. They're barren, they're empty, they don't actually give you the real valuable things about life. They're not going to teach you anything that adds up to your wisdom. They're all barren. Okay, the leaves here is a reference to the pages of a book. So close enough of that science or arts or whatever it is. Close all your books and come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives. So he tells that when you come into the natural world, when you observe nature, with a clear conscience, without any prejudices, if you become a good observer, if you watch and if you receive whatever nature teaches you, that will make you a more knowledgeable person than your books. So this is what tables turned is all about, as we again have to emphasize the fact that William Wordsworth is highly appreciated as a nature poet. In fact, he's called as the highest priest of nature, and for him nature was everything. So he believes that in tables turned especially, more than books, experiencing the natural world will make us more wise, more knowledgeable, and more understanding about the good and bad of life, and we become more wise. That is the effect of being in nature, and rather than being only with our books, because books are ultimately the compilation of barren leaves. They don't give us anything valuable in life. Rather, if we become part of nature and try to observe it silently and try to receive everything that nature gives us, if we are good observers and listeners, and if we observe natural world, that can teach us better lives of life, better lessons of life than the books can. So I think this is just a gist of all these lines. The more you read, more you reread, you can dig up more meanings in this. Hope I have just given you an outline of what exactly the tables turned is all about. Okay, students. So if you want for your further reading, just go through these slides, which will also help you to see the stanza-wise analysis of this. Okay, and it will give you a better idea and a better understanding of this poem. So with this, I end this particular video. Thank you all.